Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Group Product Manager for Microsoft Expression, Wayne Smith.
Thank you. Thank you. Good morning. Good morning. Welcome to New York, which from someone from London sounds kind of strange, really, doesn't it? Welcome to your own city. But welcome to Microsoft's presence at Internet Week New York. We're very glad to be here. There's a ton of us here, a few of us in the audience, and we're in the pavilion next door as well. And we're delighted to be in New York. And as we were putting the show together and deciding where the venue was going to be, we realized that actually, just under 4 years ago, a few of the old-timers in the group, were actually here in New York on an unfinished 31st floor of 7 World Trade Center, launching version 1 of Expression, and that was less than 4 years ago. And here we are now, 4 years later, with version 4 of Expression. That's what we're here to celebrate, the launch of Expression 4. And my word, hasn't the world changed in the last 4 years? It's incredible, the rapid change of evolution of how things have happened. Back in 2007 when we launched, sort of tweeting was what birds did in the English countryside, and it's an amazing difference. Even to sort of celebrate the British weather and the Seattle weather, the world's now embracing the cloud as well. It really is an amazing amount of change. And what we've tried to do with the Expression products is we've tried to adapt them and bring them into all the latest platform innovations that we've made to really make them exciting products to use. So what we're going to do for you today is we've got a lot of things planned in this show for about the next hour and 45 minutes. Let's get things started in a kind of a brain way. Let's get your brains working this time in the morning. I realize it's 11 o'clock. Some of us have been here quite early this morning. We want to get you thinking, get the brain juices flowing. So these Expression products, as we've said, are built by an incredibly talented team of engineers. As I said, many of them are here today. And each and every one of those engineers around the world, wherever they are, has one thing in common that I do know for a fact. They all have a passion for this thing we call user experience. Difficult to describe, but you know it when you feel it, when you see it, you understand it. And all of these engineers have that passion. But we're very lucky that at Microsoft we have one person who's an industry leader in the world of thought around user experience. A published author, great book that he's written here. We're going to give a few of these away a little bit later on. So to get things started, to get you thinking, to get you sort of really into the spirit of things, I'd like you to welcome, please, our first guest speaker from Microsoft Research, Principal Researcher, Mr. Bill Buxton. Thanks, Bill.
So, good morning. Welcome to Internet Week. It's great to be back in New York. And so, It's about the internet, so I'm going to talk a bit about the internet, and I come from research, so I'm going to talk about where things are going maybe than where things are. And so I thought I'd give some framing to some of the stuff that we're going to talk about today and this week, and I thought we could just sort of go window shopping and browse around what's going on. So we'll browse on browsing, and I want to start by a proposition, and to drill down here, and the proposition is as follows. It's that the diversity of web browsers tomorrow is going to match the diversity of ink browsers today. You start to say, well, what the hell does that mean? Well, I'm going to even go further. I'm going to say, and I mean that it's going to match the diversity in terms of form, in terms of content, and in terms of context, in terms of the physical context. So every place where you have ink browsers today, you're going to have web browsers tomorrow. Which begs the question, what's an ink browser? Well, you know it by another word. It's called paper. And so what I would propose to you is that if you spent today or tomorrow or someday and for an entire day, you did a diary study of every encounter you have with paper, whether it's a Post-it note, whether it's a billboard up on the side, a street sign, a parking ticket, money, labels on objects, and so on and so forth. Every encounter you have with paper, make a note of that. And then at the end of the day, have everybody in your team do it, and then spread it out on a board, get Post-it notes, and then cluster, and you'll see that there's some real patterns. And in each one, you ask, so who put it there? How long is it there for? What did it cost? What's the intent? What's the nature of the content? How does content relate to the form factor, relate to the location, relate to the fonts and the design, and so on and so forth? And you look at that and you sort of say, wow, there's all these different classes, and we have this literacy around this space and yes, they're all paper, and nobody calls them ink browsers, but of course it is an ink browser just as much as a web browser browses the web. And my proposition to you is that if I'm not nuts, then we will not be mature in a field, as a field, until we stop thinking about stuff as the internet any more than we talk about stuff as paper, and we start thinking about who's put what, where, when, why, and how, because the ultimate thing is where we're going is that it's going to be our mindset should be, it's going to be as cheap and convenient to put things out in digital form as it is in paper today. And if you think that's nuts, listen, cinemas already in 2002, when plasma panels, 42-inch plasma panels cost over $10,000, were already replacing movie one-sheets, movie posters, with displays. And so if that was happening then, and you look what's happened since then, what's going to happen when this stuff costs $10 a square foot, which is what you should assume it's going to cost. And so all the stuff in this image, it's going to be digital. Our mindset, our planning has to take that into account within the next few years. Now, we could drill down a bit more deeply if you want and sort of say, well, let's just take something as simple, because God's in the details, of books and reading. And all of a sudden, because there's all this stuff around e-readers and so on and so forth right now, and realize it's not about the e-reader. And if we want to design this stuff right, design the content and design the forms and the devices and so on and so forth, what we have to understand is that it's about understanding reading and the nature of what is written, for whom, where, when, why, and how, and what you do with it, that we have to understand. Otherwise, all the technology in the world is just for naught. And so, in some sense, that doesn't mean we don't write software, we don't build content that's to be read, but the first thing we have to understand is reading before we can understand authoring, much less the tools to support and deliver it. We're going to get some of that when Copia talks about the stuff in reading, so I'm not going to dive into that too deeply, more than just saying that for every single thing that we're designing types of content, that just as the diversity we see with paper, that the same diversity is going to be there forward. And so the notion of thinking about whether it's Internet Explorer as we see it today or any other browser, that's not what it's going to be going forward. And so we have to plan now because, of course, it is what it is today, but that's not where it's going. And so how do we equip ourselves and grow to that future? Now, there's some clues in this, but from history, which I think are kind of neat. And so here's the quick exercise to try and bring us about. And sort of say, well, and I've been doing this for years, to sort of say, okay, you got 15 seconds. Whether you're an engineer, and you might be pencil challenged like me, or whether you're a designer and you're not, draw a computer. I mean, if you have a piece of paper, do it right now, or in your mind's eye. If you don't have a pencil, draw quickly what a computer is to you. And there's a really interesting thing that happens if you go through this exercise, and this emphasizes what I'm trying to say. Today, many people will draw a mobile phone. In fact, you won't even draw this phone. You'll draw something that's just a rectangle with one great big fat screen. I wanted to draw something that was recognizably a phone. But some of you, and certainly 8 years ago, when I did this, and I've got thousands of examples, people drew a mouse, a keyboard, and a display. And if you're a geezer, from when I started, they would draw this. So it looks like a bunch of refrigerators and washing machines. And the thing about this is, in none of these images is there a computer. And in some sense, the thing that actually does the computation, the CPU, the architecture, the von Neumann architecture, hasn't really changed at all. It's smaller, faster, and cheaper. But you don't even see it. And going forward, where the computation takes place isn't even going to be in the device to a large extent. It's going to be out in the cloud. You're still going to have devices. That's the diversity that I was talking about around paper. But these are the things, the important thing about what I just said when I said draw a computer, because take the middle one, where most of us have had most of our experience. The computer isn't in that picture. What shapes your conceptual model, what shapes your experience and shapes your expectations and your perceptions of the nature of the beast is what you see, what you hear, what you touch, not the thing that does the computation. You don't think of your camera as a computer, but be very clear, your current digital camera has way more compute power than the first PC you ever had. It's just that the I/O is light in and pixels out. And the reason it's so good at being a camera and why you don't call it a personal computer, despite being more expensive and higher quality than your first personal computer, is because it's useless at doing your income tax. It's useless at doing email. It's useless at browsing the web, and that's why it's so useful. It knows what it is. It doesn't have schizophrenia. It just takes great pictures. So there's this thing of divergence. And it's going to get way more. And there's some things that drive that divergence that'll help convince you that there's some logic to the madness here. And if you just simply look at one particular technology that helps us understand how this is starting to happen. So from wristwatches, really, really small form factors we're starting to get, right up till we get wall-sized displays. That there's this full gamut. And the black hump there above shows you where most of the tradition's been in terms of these things from about 9 inches to 24 inches. And it's on the extremes and on the side where we're starting to populate the space. And we're going to go further out, and there's going to be way more of the ones on the left, fewer on the right. The ones on the left are going to be with you. The ones on the right are going to be embedded in the architecture and buildings in your schools and your home. And they're going to work together. And they're not going to be considered the same thing. It's going to be a watch, a camera, a PDA, a phone, a wall. How do they relate together? What's the view they give here? And the challenge for those of us who work in the business where we're designing the content, we're trying to build interactive systems is, man, it's just getting more and more populated, more and more complex, and how are we supposed to design systems that actually work and have great experience in this environment? And at least there is some place where this old story of convergence is in fact somewhat true. And it's behind the screen. So it's sort of like in your house. You have different kinds of sinks all over the house and different types of water suppliers. But, so you know the difference between a toilet and a sink, for example. But the plumbing doesn't. The convergence is in the plumbing. And you shouldn't be aware of it unless it's broken. Well, in this case, where we're going is the convergence partially is going to be out in the cloud. And so we have all of these devices, on the one hand, with the different personalities and characteristics, like different forms of paper. But it all comes from the same pulp and paper mill, so to speak. And then we have the cloud. And my sense is, if you're aware where your files are stored, if you need to be aware where files are stored or where the computation takes place going forward, it's a failure of design on our part, collectively as an industry. And when we want to see the unity, what's really going on here is we have all these same devices, But we raise the level of where the windows are, so to speak, and that all of this diverse set of appliances and devices, which is going to get even more diverse, have this unity back there in the cloud. So it's like, you know, these appliances are the windows to the cloud in the future of how we think about computing. Again, I come back and say, so, man, where does this leave us if we're trying to, you know, I'm kind of can get by on HTML and can kind of build, you know, web pages. And so what does this mean for how we approach things? On the one sense, the good news here is there's some common ground. So if we do things right, at the back end, like your plumbing, we can have some unity, some singularity, some common views, common platform. And then it's just at the final end of the delivery, I can have things come out different depending on the device and so on. On the other hand, we have to recognize that when we come out on these different platforms, putting just a shrunken down version of what's on my laptop onto my phone is simply not the right solution. It's a different device. And how do we deal with that kind of complexity? So we fix some things, we've got some things out. And then I'm going to throw in the kicker, so to speak. And this is the thing, right? So we have this thing called Natal. And there's this whole buzzword around this thing about natural user interfaces. So it says, you know, if you can do gestures like that and play your games like so, it must be natural. But the thing I want to emphasize here is that it's not about technology. That's not what makes things. It's not about the gesture even that makes something natural. Because for this kid playing this game in that room, that may very well be a natural user interface. But for this kid, playing exactly the same game, using exactly the same gesture, this is not natural. Trust me, if you're on an airplane and you're about to land and you've got exactly the same game on the video system on the back seat back in front of you, and you stand up and start doing Natal, you're going to get arrested and are cut off from the bar. But that's my son. He was. No. But the point here is, understand in everything about this, what is natural and what is appropriate in exactly the same way as what we know from paper depends on where the context, the social, physical, and content. And here, content enough isn't the same. This is the same game. Look, I photoshopped the same images in. Actually, I didn't Photoshop. I used Microsoft Digital Expression Image Suite 2006. I don't know. I just had to say that, see if I could. But there's even here something that helps us, because it comes back to, why is my camera not called my PC? By the way, your most expensive PC, in case you weren't aware of it, cost probably $10,000. And you're probably not aware of that. But if you own a $30,000 car, you bought a $10,000 PC without even knowing it. Because a third of the cost of your vehicle is in the computer. Just a little piece of trivia. You can use that at a cocktail conversation if you want to break the silence. But here's an example of what I'm talking about in terms of context. So some friends at Sapient, is an agency, I was at an advertising festival about this time last year, and they showed this Coca-Cola vending machine. And you sort of say, well, is this a web product, a device? Is this interactive? Is it a vending machine? What the hell is this? It's just a vending machine with a big honking flat plasma on it. So I got to tell you, on that graph of phones and computers and watches and so on, I didn't have a vending machine. So when I said we're going to populate the space even wider, Coca-Cola vending machines isn't exactly the first thing that comes to mind. But here's what's really cool. When you walk by, the whole brand is about things being cool and refreshing and so on and so forth. And there's this, on the screen, there's this stupid little penguin. And the cool thing is, it starts off, you're walking by and it starts throwing snowballs at you. And you come by, and it's interactive, by the way. You can start to come back and throw them back. But the point is that you start to see this creature from behind and scraping the ice off of the screen, and it simply draws you into it. And the nature of the content is suited for this very specific screen and the very specific product that's behind that screen in the container that draws you in and does the message. And you can sort of say, is that a browser? Well, actually, in a way it is. It helps me browse the physical environment when I'm working. And the neat thing is that I don't have to make it do my income tax as well. And so it starts to become manageable if I've got the right tools. So where all of this leads us to, and helping set up, is that, yes, in some sense, the world is getting more complex if we do the new things in the old way. But ultimately, in this, we know with paper that we can, and our experience from a lifetime of living in the everyday world, that we can, in fact, deal with the complexity of the traditional media and the challenges with the media that's coming. Can we handle it in a way that it makes sense? It's appropriate. And this comes down to this notion, then, I would say, is that just as I don't want my phone or my watch to behave like a little PC, I want it to behave like a watch or a phone or a camera. This is the basic rule. It's consistency with the quality of user experience is the only consistency that matters. And that leads us to this other part. That means consistency with expectations. And the expectations are set by the physical form factor, the social location, and the physical location, and my intent. And if I can get that stuff right, the nice thing is, the more diverse the appliances and where they're situated, the easier it is for me to anticipate what those expectations are and then to tailor the content accordingly. Now, that doesn't help us make it right away, and that's where we wrap up. And where we wrap up is in saying this, that if you have a common set of tools that help me construct things at the higher level, whether it's in the cloud or in the device, so that then I can tailor it and have it appropriately presented in the different contexts, then when I introduce a new platform, that application and that content can be repurposed or specifically tailored for that channel, that device, without having to start from scratch. And the challenge for us, and this is at Microsoft, but also Microsoft Research, is to stay ahead of the game so you can go to the right level of abstraction so that the tools reflect the content and what you're working on at the right level of abstraction, so the things that can be common across the board can be common. How you slice things in terms of where the computation takes place between in the cloud or in the device can be managed in an appropriate way and properly structured, so that then that you can focus on, for each platform, just leveraging on that investment and then bringing it out and tailoring the content so it's optimized for the right person at the right place, in the right form, at the right time, and at the right cost, and with the right experience. And so in many ways, what we're talking about today, and where we are right now with the stuff that's going to be shown today, is to say, here's where we are today. But if you want to understand where it's going, if you work backwards from the first release of Expression to where we're going forward, and with tools like Sketchflow and so on, is to build the tools so that as we migrate into the space that I'm describing to, that you don't have to start from scratch, and that the tools will help the content migrate and help you focus on the part that you know the best, and that is how to engineer the things for your customers and your clients without having to deal with this other stuff. That's my job. And I can't do what you can do. You can't perhaps do what I can do. And the whole essence here is, how do we work as a team and make this stuff happen so we actually can realize the potential of actually, by adding more of the right stuff in the right place, we have less complexity and a far better user experience. So with that, I'll leave you for the rest, and thank you very, very much.
Thanks, Bill. Thank you very much. Mr. Bill Buxton. Remember, as I said at the beginning, he's going to hang around and he's going to sign a few copies of his book for you at the end of some lucky winners, and I'll tell you how you're going to win a little bit later on. So, how did we get here today? What's the road to us being in New York? Well, it all started actually a couple of months ago in Las Vegas in April, where we had the first of a whole raft of launches, the first one being the launch of our Visual Studio development tools. Visual Studio 2010 was launched, as I said, in Las Vegas, and then there was a whole raft of events went on all around the world. Literally every corner of the world there was a launch event. And they brought out a new version, as I said, of Visual Studio Professional, Visual Studio Premium, and Visual Studio Ultimate. And alongside those development tools came new versions of the underlying platforms, the platforms on which we build. And the platforms in that case, of course, are .NET and Silverlight, both of which went to version 4. So to keep in lockstep, what we've tried to do is keep our version numbers the same on the design tools, and that's what we're launching here today, as I said, the version 4 of Expression Studio. And what we've also done is we've tried to bring some synergy with our development tools as well. So we now have Expression Studio Ultimate, the full kit for everyone doing the full gamut of design from the web right through to Silverlight. And we also have right down to Expression Studio Web Professional for those who focus more on the standards-based web. So those are the tools. And the great thing is that this isn't a launch event where we say we're launching and it'll be available in some number of months' time. It's today. The tools are available today. You can go and download them from the website right now. And remember, as we announced back at Mix earlier in the year, the version 4 products for anyone who bought version 3 are free. It's a free upgrade for everyone to get all this new power, the latest platform stuff. Okay, I think it's time that we actually saw some of these tools in action. So we're going to show you 3 of the tools today, and we're going to try and do some slightly more different demos than you sort of normally see, trying to push the engineers to their limits. The first one we're going to look at is Expression Encoder Pro. Now, as its name suggests, Encoder encodes. It's a video encoding tool, but it does a lot more than that. It encodes for devices and for the web, and it also does things like screen capture. To just give us a little taste of what it can do, will you please welcome from the Expression Encoder team, Group Program Manager, Mr. Alan Poor. Come on, Alan.
Hi, Wayne.
How are you?
Good, how you doing?
So, Alan, I want to get some video up on the web. Where am I going to start?
So, first of all, we'll start here. I'll jump just right in here, basically. And the first thing you're going to notice about Expression Encoder 4 is that we have a new project dialog.
We do.
And this dialog will basically allow you to select different project types you're going to be working with, whether it's a transcoding project, which will look a lot like V3, or Silverlight project. Your UI will reconfigure for the task you're going to be doing, or even a live broadcasting project. And we've spent a lot of time in our live broadcasting module with redesign and functionality that you'll see later on in the project. So the first thing I'm going to do is select transcoding a project. I'm going to come in here and import a file. And basically, I'm using the Mill Showreel from 2009. They're a design firm.
We like this one, don't we?
Based out of the UK. They were nice enough to let us use their reel for the thing. So I'm going to play this back just to make sure it's the right one that we're looking for. It's good. Looks decent. This is probably the right one. And you're going to want to do a lot of common tasks to your video before you transcode. And most people have to swap out to an NLE or different tools to utilize it. Here we can do a lot of that stuff simply inside the encoder itself, saving you both time and money. So what I'm going to basically do is trim out a big portion of this, do some basic editing just to get it down to where we want it, say somewhere right around here. Now we have our edit point set in. And another thing that people often do is actually do cropping. So if you're going to correct your aspect ratio or correct other problems, or stuff you don't want to see.
Black bars on the top.
Exactly, those kinds of things that you can remove from the video. So in here you can basically drag these boxes down, focus on particular areas of things that you didn't want to see. And another thing that's very common is that you put overlays on top of your video, whether it's branding or effects or other stuff like that. We support a whole host of overlay functionality. Whether it's video, and you do picture-in-picture like stuff, or a still image, or even XAML. So if you edit stuff in Blend, create animations and that kind of thing, you can do it from there. So here's just a simple overlay. I'll actually limit this down a bit so it's not so egregiously over the whole video. And play that back, and you can quickly see how quickly we created an alpha overlay. Yeah. And I'll do one more, which is basically our XAML. Now that's just been replaced by something that we created in Blend earlier. You can kind of see how that works. Let's move it over here so it's not in the way of. Yeah, that's basically how that works.
Nice.
The last thing I want to do is add some markers. So markers will be navigation points. So when you're viewing this video up on the web, you can see, you can do those various things like that.
Chapters.
Chapters,
so, yeah,
exactly.
Okay, yeah.
Right. So I'm going to add a few of these that will play back over time. And then then we basically have what we need here. So at this point, I basically got my video edited. I've added an overlay, and now I've added markers. So I think we're ready to talk about encoding. So I'm going to go to my code panel here and basically scroll up to do my output type. And we output 3 different types of video. Windows Media, obviously, MP4, and smooth streaming, which I'll get into in a minute. I'm going to select MP4. And one of the things to note is that we spent a lot of time in V4 working on our H.264 pipeline. This is obviously a very popular format And so we've increased performance significantly, as well as giving you access to a lot of the low-level features that people want to work with. Especially if you're a compressionist, you care a lot about entropy modes, B-frames.
That's very detailed, but what if I just want to get a video on my Zune or something?
So if you don't care about these kinds of settings, we provide you with a bunch of presets that'll actually make this very simple for you. So things that are common targets, whether devices, out to your iPods, your Zunes, your PSPs, your Xboxes, and all those kind of things. We have the settings already set up for you. These are fully customizable. You can create these for whatever kind of output you want to do. We also have some other ones for online services, going up to YouTube and Facebook and that kind of thing. So what I'm going to focus on is H.264. I'm going to select a constant bit rate, and let's do something at 256 to start to see if that'll be enough for us. So I'm going to go ahead and apply that. Video got a little smaller there, as it should for resolution-wise, and play that back at this point. And so now before I go off and do a large transcode here, I want to get a preview of what I want to do so I don't have to waste time if things aren't correct. So I'm going to seek in here and actually go into A/B compare mode. And what this will do is build a 5-second preview of the area so you can get an idea of how this is going to turn out. So my original is on the left, the encoded bits are on the right, and you can actually play with this slider and go from different parts of the frame to see how it is. So you'll definitely notice some artifacting there. I also can use what we call a difference mode, which is basically a black and white representation of the differences between the frames. So if you can't quite tell, it makes it very obvious about
really
where the
clear, isn't it? Yeah, wow.
And so this is a little bit too granular for me. I think I want to actually update the bit rate a little bit higher. So what I'm going to do is get out of A/B compare mode and basically go in and apply a higher bit rate preset. I'll do there. And let's go back into A/B compare mode and build a preview. And do a side-by-side. You'll notice it's all black now and playing back and stuff like that. Let's get this into the right one. And they almost look identical, which is great. So this is what's going to be the compressed video after it's done. It looks good to me, so I'm going to go ahead and basically use this. So I'm going to make sure that I have thumbnails selected for those markers I set up earlier. Get that done. Also make sure that my output type is set. So the thumbnail here, this will be the thumbnail that represents the video up on the website for you. I'm going to select best frame, and this will basically give me the first non-black frame that will represent the thing.
Right.
Also make sure that my output directory is set correctly, and go down in here. And one of the new things that we've added in V4 is digital rights management integration. So, excuse me, if you have a play-ready server in your workflow, you can simply check this box and point it at it, and your video will be encrypted during the encode process. So it removes the step of doing it after and gets it all done at the same time.
So content protection for those who want it.
Exactly. A couple other things that we're publishing up on the gallery shortly. We're going to have a SharePoint 2010 publishing plugin. This will allow you to publish directly up to SharePoint 2010, and they have some new functionality that is focused around the video gallery stuff, so it makes that process much, much easier. And now the last thing I want to show you is around templates. And templates are basically player skins that kind of wrap around your video and give you navigation controls, and we provide about 15 of these by default in here. You can kind of see some previews down here of what they look like. And we give you the full source code to these. You can take these, customize them using as starting points, or however you want to do it, using either Blend or Visual Studio. So what I'm going to do is pick the Chrome one. I think we're basically ready at this point, and click and encode. Make sure we got everything set, which we do. So now what it's doing is it's encoding the video with the chapter points we put in there, the overlay, and then also the trims in the video. We provide a local web service that will give you kind of a simulated playback of what the experience is going to look like once you're up there. So basically, here's the video that we encoded, playing it back. Here's the seek points with thumbnails that we got. You can use to seek those various points in the video. And all done playing back inside your browser. And at this point, I'm pretty happy with what I have, but I don't really like the template. And I want the video to actually scale to fill the screen. So what I'm going to do is go back into the encoder and basically choose a new template. The expression one seems to match better with what I'm going for here, a darker one. And then I'm going to go down and select the stretch mode to fill the screen. And I think we're ready to go.
And re-encode it all.
Yeah. So you'll notice how fast that went.
Wow.
Right? We have a whole new template here and everything. And we've spent a lot of time working on what we call smart recompression. And this will basically figure out when transcoding is necessary and when it's not, and do the right thing. So bits are just copied across, and you don't have to wait and have an additional transcode that will affect quality as well as the time. So basically, we play this back. You can see it's the same video, just wrapped in a different skin. And we even have some cool 3D effects, basically, about chapter points and how that's all going to work. Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Very nice.
Yeah.
So I remember at the start of the thing, in the panel it said about live smooth streaming. Can you just give us a quick talk about live smooth streaming?
Sure. So live smooth streaming is a technology that we worked on with the IIS Media Group. And what it basically does is allow you to have smooth, uninterrupted playback of video on your via the web. And one of the biggest problems, we all know about it, when we're watching video on the web is stuttering playback. And this kind of gets rid of that problem by encoding your video to multiple bit rates. And there's client-side heuristics that determine how well the video playback is actually going. So it's doing bit rate switching, and quality is changing instead to deal with the changes in your bandwidth rather than stopping and buffering the video for the most part. So what I'm going to do is basically play this back. This is a video, the same video I'd recorded earlier, and transcoded to basically 8 different bit rates that you can basically see over here. And the red line is telling you which current bit rate is playing. Okay. The green line is showing you the frames that are actually coming through. And so we can watch this here. What I'm going to do is force it, pretend like your neighbor got onto your internet or your kids or someone, and
bandwidth goes
and
zoop.
bandwidth just went out. What I'm going to do is actually get rid of the buffer by doing a quick seek. And you'll notice now I'm down at the lowest stream right now. I'm going to click back up here again, and this thing will step up as soon as the buffer runs out. I'll force it to happen here. And you'll notice it came right back up to a higher quality bit rate without any kind of stuttering in the playback.
Just continued to play, didn't it? And the quality just sort of kicked in a few seconds at a time.
And this is technology that was first used in the Olympics, in the Beijing Olympics, Summer Olympics, and we've gone ahead and productized this with the IIS team.
Right. Absolutely fantastic.
Right.
Okay. Many thanks.
Sure.
Thanks, Alan.
Thanks.
So Alan talked a little bit there about websites and building websites. The next product we're going to move on to have a look at is Expression Web. Now, Expression Web is actually the first Expression product. It was the first one we released back in New York, as remember I said in 2006 and 7. So Expression Web is a tool for building standards-based web content. It's the editing tool for HTML, cascading style sheets, JavaScript, etc. And it's pretty well known that it does that. So I challenged the Expression Web team to come up with a demo that was a little different, focus on some different areas I asked them to do. Because I know there's a lot of tools in the product that really help you with the quality of a website. Not just the building aspects, but the quality of building it and helping you to really be productive in building a website. So I'm hoping they've come up with something good. So will you please welcome from the Expression Web team, Group Program Manager, Eric Saltwell. Hey. So you're up to this challenge?
I am, absolutely. I'm thrilled to be back in New York where I can talk as fast as I damn well
you're
like.
here, aren't you? That's right.
Yeah,
yes, you're a local. So you should have welcomed them to start with, not me. Yeah.
So, Wayne, I'm going to show you today really 3 key areas of investment that we've been working on in Expression Web 4. And those 3 areas are a new add-on model that allows you to extend the product using only JavaScript, HTML, and CSS. 2, I'm going to talk about really deep cross-browser debugging with Super Preview. And then 3, I'm going to talk about new SEO diagnostics that we have that help you optimize where your pages and sites show up in the search engines.
Okay, sounds good.
Great. So let's get started. What I have here is I have a site, a fictitious site I've been working on for a fake group, hopefully, called the Washington Apple Growers Association.
It sounds real.
Yeah. And I have a page here, and this is kind of the where are we located page. And I'm about at the point where I need to put a map in here. And this is a pretty common task, something that I do relatively often.
Every website has a map,
Yeah, absolutely. And because it's so common, I've decided to automate it using our new extensibility mechanism. So I'm going to show you that. I'm going to actually go to that page. I'm going to select the div where I want the map. And in the Insert menu, you'll see you now have Insert Bing Map. This is...
I haven't got that in my copy.
No, you don't. Although we're going to be publishing this on the Expression blog, so you will have it available.
Oh, cool. Okay.
What you see here is a menu item, and when I click it, it's going to run JavaScript that brings up this HTML dialog box. And I'm going to say that the location is Wenatchee, Washington. And that's actually the heart of the apple growing industry in Washington State.
Is it really?
Yeah.
Well, I never knew that.
Yeah. All right, I'm going to hit, kind of zoom it in, move it around a little, hit insert. And when I do, it will have inserted the code into the page. That up comes the map. Right.
Wow.
So, and everything that we did here didn't require any COM, any VB script, any C#. It's all languages that web developers are familiar with. And I'm going to dig in for just a second and show you what is this add-in made of. And actually, if I go to the extension subdirectory of the expression install folder, you'll see this map subdirectory. And in here is really just a collection of HTML, JavaScript, CSS files, and this one XML file. That's what we call our manifest. And you'll see very, very simple. It just says add-in. Here's the name of the add-in. And here's a command. And the command in this case is JavaScript. And we tie that command to a menu item. We can also tie it to toolbar items. You can create panels in the app using HTML. Very, very, very simple, very lightweight, very easy to use, especially if you're already familiar with web technology.
And that's the thing. So if you're already using these technologies, you can actually understand how to just build your own extensions for web.
That's absolutely correct.
Cool.
Great. So now I'm going to move on a little bit. Let's say that I'm done with my site, and I want to now make sure that this site works correctly in a number of browsers.
Yes, good luck.
Yeah, so this is, of course, a complaint that we get all the time. It's one of the most onerous tasks that web developers do, and we really wanted to make this easier. And in version 3 of Expression Web, we added a new feature to help make this possible, and it's called Super Preview. Right. We did some new work in 4 that I'm going to talk about. So I'm going to bring up Super Preview, and what you see here is 2 panes where you can select a number of browsers. I'm going to select Firefox. I'm going to compare it to, say, IE8. I'm going to compare it to IE6. And then now with version 4, we're actually shipping a beta service that allows you to see how your page renders in Safari on a Macintosh. And the way that we do that is that we actually use, we have a cloud with a whole ton of Mac servers, and this service will have the cloud render it and then send you back the rendering.
So anyone who's got version 4 will be able to get access to this service for now?
That's absolutely correct. So you can see here, I see the 2 pages.
That was fast. And
the first thing that I want to do is I want to kind of see, are my pages correct? And the easiest way to do that is using a mode that we call overlay mode. This is onion skinning the 2. And if you scroll in, you can see it looks relatively the same, but there's
pretty close.
Yep, there's some differences, but these differences are really caused because the fonts on the Mac are different than the fonts on the PC.
So yeah.
Absolutely. If I move to, say, IE8, you can see there it really looks pixel perfect.
That's interesting. IE8 and Firefox.
Yeah.
Identical.
Absolutely. So now we've kind of checked Safari. We're happy with IE8. We're happy with, let's check IE6.
Oh dear.
So here's, you can see, let me scroll out a little. You can see IE6, IE8. I6, IE8, there's clearly problems, not totally unexpected.
So you know there's a picture of a problem.
Yep, and in fact, here's the thing. There are already there are already a number of services out there that kind of provide this service. They're in the picture drawing business where you can get pictures of how your page looks like. But here's the problem with these services. If you find a problem, you don't have that browser local. How are you going to debug that problem? How are you going to fix it? We really wanted to go deeper than just drawing pictures to help you really be able to fix a problem without having that browser. And I'm going to show you some of that now. So what I'm going to do is go back into side-by-side mode, and I'm going to start by looking at this image down at the bottom. Now you'll notice when I hover, it shows me the location of the element, and it shows me the location in both browsers, right? This is already starting to get more than just pictures. But why is this element off? Is it a problem in the styling of this image? Is it a problem in its parent? Something earlier in document flow? In order to start to drill in, I'm going to bring up our side-by-side DOM trees. Now I'm going to select the image, and you're going to see it's going to select. And these DOM trees are available for all of our browsers, including the one from Safari on the Mac. Okay. And you can see when I select the image, I also get a box here that shows me the size and location of this image. And sure enough, it says, yep, the top is pushed way down. But why is that? In order to check, I'm going to go up one element in the document flow, which is this list. And when I do, you can clearly see that this list is bigger in IE6 than it is.
Stretched, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. So that's why the image is off. But why is this list bigger? I'm going to start to drill in a little, and I'm just going to zoom in. And notice how the first element in the list appears about the same.
Pretty close.
but the second one's getting off and getting further off.
They're starting to drift now,
Yeah,
aren't they?
absolutely. They're starting to drift. So there's something going on with the list elements probably. I'm going to click on this anchor tag, and I see, look, they're about the same location, and they're identical in size. So that's not the problem. I'm actually going to go up to the parent list item and click on that. And when I click on it, you can actually see visualized right here that the two elements have different size. That's also reported in red here. It's really the problem. That's right. The size of these list items are off, and that's what's causing the problem. Now you can see here, this is really getting deep DOM data to help you debug your problem. And now that I found it, I'm actually going to go in and fix it. In this case, I happen to be using a selector that is not supported by IE6. I'm going to delete it. I'm going to save the page. I'm going to come back. I'm going to refresh. I'm actually going to pull down the DOM tree, and you can see these pages are now identical.
Excellent.
So that's deep cross-browser debugging with Super Preview.
Nice.
The last thing I'd like to talk about today is SEO. And you know, anybody who's building a page, they want to get it seen, and that means showing up high in the page, in the search engines.
Good luck.
Yes, exactly. It's a little bit of a black art.
Science or a black art, who knows, yeah.
And there's actually a whole industry of folks who are paid handsomely in order to help you optimize your page to show up as well as it deserves in the search engines. Okay. And we went to these people and we collected the best practices and rules, and we wanted to kind of codify them and put them into the tool so that we can help you to do that optimization yourself. And I'm going to show you that now. So I'm going to go into Tools and SEO Reports. It's going to ask me some initial questions, some kind of what pages do I want? Do I want errors and warnings? There's a link to our extensive help documentation. I'm going to click check here, and when I do, I'm just going to sort by error. You're going to see that I get a ton of errors. And the first one says, hey, this anchor tag, this hyperlink that I'll show you now, the text inside of it is too general. And if you were to go into the help documentation, we would explain that the text in links is used by search engines so that it can figure out what is the link to page about. And here, the text we say is about us. And about us isn't providing any help in understanding what the page is about.
So
now,
people can really learn a lot about how this is done then, just by reading the tooltips and the help documentation.
I actually think one of the best values of this feature is that the report really is a key into that documentation to help you learn SEO. Right. Now here's the interesting thing. We've said, oh, hey, about us, not adding any search engine value. But how do we know that, right? How do we know that about us is problematic? What we've done is we've actually gone and crawled the web, and we've found the top 100 or so link texts, the top 100 or so page titles, you know, link text like click here, about us, page titles like welcome or God forbid, new page, page one. Yeah, absolutely. And we collect those and we report on them for you. It's just one of a whole suite of rules that we have. So I'd actually like to go in now and fix this, but you can see I have a ton of these errors. And if I look at this page, this is kind of a press release page. And it's just part of my template that at the bottom I have this about us.
So you've got lots of different versions of them, yeah.
Right, so I could go and I could fix each one, or I could go in and try to fix them all at once. And I'm going to do that using what is actually a quite powerful find and replace system that is very HTML aware that'll help us do this. So I'm going to type in, I want to find about us, but I don't want to find about us everywhere. I really only want to find links that have about us as its text. And I can do that using our HTML find and replace rules. So I'm going to click new rule. I'm going to say only find it inside of A tags. I'm going to click OK and find, and you'll see it absolutely finds all of these press releases. Now I'm going to go back in, and I'm going to do replace. I'm going to replace it with about the Washington apple growers.
So something really specific.
Yeah, absolutely. Something that's going to add some value there. Yeah. And then I'm going to hit replace all. And then you see that text is absolutely changed.
Okay.
So what I've shown you here today is I've shown you a new extensibility mechanism that web developers can use using web developer languages. I've shown really deep cross-browser debugging using Super Preview and the new beta service for Safari on the Mac. And I've shown you SEO diagnostics to help you optimize your pages for the search engines.
Fantastic. Thanks a lot, Eric.
Yeah,
you really rose to the challenge. Thanks a lot. So the third and final product we're going to look at today is we're going to look at Expression Blend, and in combination with it, a feature it has called SketchFlow. So this is an application that we have for prototyping and building really these rich experiences, the kind of which you've seen a little later on. So to help me show you these to you, will you please welcome the Senior Product Manager for Expression Blend, Mr. John Harris. Come out, John.
Hello.
So, now SketchFlow actually came out originally in version 3, so it's been out about a year now,
That's right,
and it's had an incredible reception. You know, the reviews to it have been fantastic. To save a bit of time today, can we just give them a quick flavour of what SketchFlow does?
Let's watch a video.
Let's watch a video, okay.
Let's start by utilising my SketchFlow map, which allows me to rapidly create the flow of my application UI. Very quickly I can get a sense of how the user will navigate through this application, and at any time I can build and test the application to quickly find and fix issues with the UI flow. Controls that are sketchy in style help the client understand that this is an early stage prototype. Don't be fooled though by the sketchy style. These are real Silverlight controls. To test the project, our client simply needs a Silverlight enabled browser. Prototypes are brought to life with transitions, animation and interactivity, and remain as conceptual or become as real as a particular project or client demands. SketchFlow also enables clients to send actionable feedback about the prototype using the built-in text and drawing controls of the SketchFlow player. The client can navigate the prototype, making separate notes and annotations on each application screen. The client can then send that feedback to the development team, who can now review it in context on the design surface. Creating documentation is time-consuming. SketchFlow speeds up that process by literally turning the project into a Word document, complete with a table of contents and screenshots of all of the different screens and application states. SketchFlow is just one of the powerful new features in Expression Blend 3.
I didn't see your lips move once, John. That was brilliant. Yes. So you've actually used SketchFlow to start off the Blend demo, haven't you? You've been using it.
That's right.
Now, you're not going to believe what this guy does. Puts together in the next 20 minutes. Watch this. This is fantastic.
Okay, so we've actually used SketchFlow in a slightly different way in this demo. We haven't built the flow of the application. We're actually presenting different ideas to the client. So you can see down here we've got 3 different versions of this particular application that we want to show to the client. So let's just jump straight to the browser and just see exactly what the client would see. And obviously one of the things we want to do very early and as quickly as possible is to engage the client with our idea. So here's the sort of basic layout, but I can actually make it interactive with SketchFlow. So I can come in here, I can click on these buttons, and even though these were originally drawn images, we can actually interact with that idea. Let's go back, let's look at the second idea we presented. Slightly more information on show here. The client wasn't so keen on that one. And the third one is actually the idea they went with. It's actually a book search utility that allows you to search Amazon online. So I click on the search tool, the books sort of zoom out from the planet, and it all looks fantastic. So this is what the client actually wanted us to build. So as ever with these demos, we like to start off with the finished application, just so you can get an idea of what we're going to try and build in the next few minutes. So here we've got the finished app. We've got a number of different countries at the top here. We can just click on a couple of these, and you can see the data sort of animates out really nicely there. Let's click on the USA as well. You can see the globe rotates, that path sort of alternates and changes. We can scooch along through the different books here. When I click on a book, you can see some detailed information about that book. Obviously, at this stage, we're just using some dummy data just to illustrate this. And obviously, the nice thing is, if you look at this data, if we just move along to the next book, you'll see that the data has actually been updated. So it's a real live living application. So shall we try and build this then?
You're going to build all that in 20 minutes. But you've prepared some stuff, the books and stuff. You're not going to scan all the books in, are you?
I'm not going to scan all the books in. Okay. There's a tiny bit of stuff we've prepared already. You can see here I've just done some of the original drawing and that sort of stuff, saving about 3 or 4 minutes of you watching me use the pen tool. But literally, we're pretty much starting from scratch. So what we're going to do is build all of the individual elements and then wire all those different things together. So let's start off by building that sort of rotating globe. And what we're going to do is we're just going to go over here and we're going to grab my sequencing control, and I can just drag that out onto the desktop here. And actually, when you look at this, these are the 2 areas of Blend I'll actually be using quite a lot in this demo. This is the asset panel, and this is where we're actually going to be adding assets to the application. And over here is the property inspector, where, as its name suggests, we'll be altering and editing properties. So I'm just going to make some changes to this particular item, and we'll just change the size and make it roughly the same size as it was in the application earlier. Just move that down here. And obviously, because it's going to be a sequence of images, we really need to have a start image and an end image. So we'll just come in here, we'll choose the start image, and then we'll also choose the end image. And as soon as we do that, then this particular control will just build out the animation for me. And we can skip through and have a quick look at the rough of that. The next thing we want to do, remember that sort of nice sort of swooshing arc we had running across the page there? Yeah. Well, to build that, we need to have some data. So I'm just going to use Blend sample data sort of utility here, and literally just hit new sample data, it creates the data really quickly. I just need a couple of extra data properties here, and again, very quickly and easy to create those. And let's just give these a slightly more sensible name for the application we're building. We need authors. We need book descriptions, so we'll just add that in there. We need images for the book covers, so we'll add that. And then finally, we need book titles as well. So we've renamed all of the data properties. Now we just need to tell Blend what sort of data this should actually be. So for authors, well, we want it to be a string. I actually want it to be people's names, so I'll go and choose names from this drop-down menu, and Blend will actually create that data for me. For the description, again, I want this to be text. Lorem ipsum will do for the demo, but I actually want more words than 4, because obviously that's
short description.
Yeah, short description. For images, surprise, surprise, I'll need some images. So I'm just going to browse and find a folder where we've got some sample book covers that we can use for this demo. And then finally, we'll just change the titles, and we'll have a maximum word count of 3 and a maximum word length of 3. So I've got my data almost ready. By default, Blend has created 10 little bits of data, but we need a little bit more to play with, you know. So I'm going to come back down here and just change this to 40 data records, and you can see that Blend's now giving me much more data to play around with. So that's much better. And of course, I can just pick that up, drag it, and drop it, and now I've got my data in my application.
Good old list box, yeah.
Yeah. Doesn't quite look as sexy as the thing we had before. So let's just see how we'd actually create that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my pen tool here, and I'm literally just going to draw out the path that I want this data to flow along. So we'll just do that. That looks about right. And I'm just literally going to change a couple of elements here. I'm just going to get rid of the fill, because we don't need the fill, and also get rid of the stroke as well. And then down here, I'm just going to tell this path that I want it to be a layout path.
Ah, so this is new, isn't it?
That's right. This is a new feature in V4. Then I can come over and grab the data I want to use, like these images, and literally drag and drop those, and they just sort of scooch along that path really nicely there.
Nice.
Of course, I can now come back to the property inspector and start tweaking all of the different controls and make this look exactly how we want it to look. So down here, I can change the spacing and the padding and that sort of stuff, and bring in some more book covers there. In this case, I'm just going to go for even spacing. I'm going to align the book covers along the path so we get that really nice flow. I'm just going to change a couple of other sort of items here just so it animates the way I want it to animate. So it's starting to look a little bit like the
It's looking a bit like it, yeah.
Now, one of the nice things about Blend and Silverlight is the way it separates out the data from how the data actually looks. I want this data to look a little bit more flowing and have some transparency effects and things like that. So I'm going to actually go into one of my data templates and literally just edit how this looks. So there's a few little elements in here that I don't need anymore, so I'm just literally going to delete those. And then we're actually going to transform this. And we're actually going to use something called the path list item transformer. And it's pretty much going to do what its name suggests. It's going to allow me to add an effect, a transformative effect along that path. So you can see we've got transparency, we've got scale, and it's very quick and easy to do that, just drag and drop.
And you can still make tweaks to that, can you?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, this is one of the really nice things about all of these controls. We can come back into the property inspector and literally just select the controls here and start to tweak the opacity or the scale. So maybe we want to make this a little bit bigger so you can actually see that final, well, a lot bigger so we can see that final book. We can also change the way it's applying that effect. So in this case, I want to use one of my sort of easing functions here. And we'll just apply that effect along the line there. You can see how it's just changed the way that that's actually operating.
And it's really non-destructive, isn't it? You can go and try out so many different sort of things to just get the look and feel that you're trying to
Absolutely.
achieve.
You can spend hours and hours just tweaking the sort of look out of this. And of course, Wayne now worries that I'm going to spend the next hour. Being a designer, I like it to look exactly how I want it to look. So
That's near enough. That's near enough.
We're just going to fiddle it. No, I want it a bit close. That'll
right,
do.
okay, yeah.
Okay. So that's looking pretty good now. Now we need to add some control onto this. So what I'm going to do is come up to my resources. And I've got a little arrow button here that I can just drag out. And we'll just rescale that just a little bit. And let's just make a copy of that guy over here like so. And I'm just going to swing it around because it's pointing in the wrong direction. And then I'm just going to give it a slightly more sensible name because button and button isn't exactly readable.
Especially for the next person who picks up the project and can't figure out what you've done.
Yeah. So that makes much more sense. So what we need to do now is just link those two things together. And the way we're going to do that is we're going to use something called a behavior. Now, behaviors are fantastic because they're these little chunks of production-ready code that you can literally drag and drop into your application. So let's just see how easy it is to actually do that. So here's the behavior I want to use. I drag and drop it down into my application. And then when I come over to my property inspector, I just get a small set of properties that I can control with that behavior. So in this case, how I want to move backwards through the data and how I want to move forwards through the data. So again, it's very easy for me to understand what I need to do here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a control to this, an event trigger, and then I decide what it is I actually want to use to control that. And in this case, I want to use this button. And then how do I actually want it to work? I want it to work when I click on it. I'll just do exactly the same thing for going forward through the data as well. I just hit OK, choose the item I want to click on, and then actually tell it that I want it to actually work when we click on it. So already, it's looking pretty much like the finished app.
Yeah.
One of the things, if you remember though, when we clicked on the different countries, it changed. The layout changed, and it moved, and it animated. Yeah, that's really different states of the application. So let's just show you how you'd create a different state within an application. So I'm now in my state manager, and this will allow me to design different views. So I'm just literally going to add a new view here, and we'll just call this country views. So we're going to be looking at different countries. And we'll add one view for the USA. We'll just build out two just to save some time. Yeah. And we'll add one for the UK. Now all I need to do is make the changes I want for each country. So in this case, I want to change maybe the path a little bit for the UK. So I'm just literally going to drag that. We'll drag that up there. I'll do my designery thing and just straighten that up a bit to make it, there we go, that's nice. I also want to change the globe as well, so it rotates around.
UK to the front, yeah.
Exactly. So I just come over here to the property inspector again and just literally go down and grab the globe and say, I think it's roughly about 34 on the map there, and that will rotate round. And then we'll do exactly the same thing with the USA as well. We'll just change that to position of 50. And now we're starting to get the effect that we want. We're changing from one view to the other. But it's...
Bang. It's just a change,
it's just,
isn't it? Yeah.
Bang, bang. And a lot of the applications today, what really brings an application to life is that transition from one state of the application to the other. It's the animation that really brings it to life and draws people. It is. It's the user experience. Yeah. It's exactly what Bill and you were talking about earlier. So within Blend, I can very quickly change that. I can add a time to this transition. So we'll just add in about half a second. And then I can add an effect as well, just accelerate and decelerate that animation slightly. And then we can actually see what that looks like right on the design surface.
Nice.
And already it just starts to feel a bit more tactile and a bit more real. So this is looking pretty good now. Now the base state here, this is what the application looks like when it loads. And this is actually wrong, because when the application loads, I don't want to see any of that data or anything. So let's quickly go and change that. So I'm just going to go through a process here. I'm going to select the data and say, when the application loads, I don't want to see it. Those navigation buttons, I don't want to see those either, and just collapse those down. Then when we go to the USA pane, I do want to see those buttons. And I do want to see the data. So we'll just come back and reset that. And then I just need to do exactly the same thing for the UK as well. So we'll just select the UK, select that to 100%, and just bring the buttons back.
So these states are just little snapshots of all the different places an application might be in for you. Yeah.
That's exactly it. So when the application loads now, it looks like this, and then we can change from state to state.
Got it.
So that's looking pretty good now. The last thing I want to do is when we click on one of those books, is actually slide out that extra information, the detailed view. So one of my designers has actually been working away in Photoshop, just creating a little composition of what that might look like. So just go and grab that and load that in. So I'm just opening the Photoshop file, and you can see it brings through all of the individual layers there from the Photoshop file. Text remains text, vectors remains vectors, it remains editable. And then I can just import this straight into Blend and use this within my design environment. So I'm just going to drag that to the right layer in the application. And then I can position this exactly where I want it to go. Oh, except I can't see the data. I don't really know where this
needs to be next to the book cover, really, doesn't it?
It does. It needs to be next to the book cover. So I can use this sort of neat little feature here where I can get a little preview of where that data will appear when we show it a little bit later. So I can position this in exactly the right place.
So you're just using the state manager again just to give you a little snapshot.
Exactly, exactly. So what I want to do now is create a connection between the book cover and this text we've just imported. So let's just see how Blend helps me do that. I'm going to come back to my data panel, and I'm going to click on Details mode. And this is fantastic because it means I don't need to do any sort of manual work to make this work. I can literally drag and drop this information, and Blend will create the connection for me. And you can see that the text is updated.
It's exactly the same format, isn't it?
Same format, same font, same color, and it looks exactly how the designer expected it to look. We can drag out the description, and we can drag out the titles. But what this hasn't done, it hasn't just replaced the text, it's actually created a data connection between those two elements. So we'll see how that works in a second. So of course, this is what the application looks like when it loads. So we don't really want to see that information straight off the bat. So let's hide it. And then we just need to add the ability to control that so we can slide it in and out.
Okay.
And of course, for some of the audience, they've already guessed how we're going to do that. We're going to add another set of states, yeah. So we'll have a details view. And we'll just add a couple of different views on this. And we'll have one called hide for when it's hidden. And that looks pretty good for the hidden view.
Now,
yep. And we'll add one called show. And to just make it so we're in the right mode there, I'm just literally going to reset that left margin and bring that back. So now we've got exactly the effect we want. It slides in and out.
Again, it's just jumping, isn't it?
It's just jumping, yeah. So we're just going to add a transition time, and we're going to add a nice easing function there, just to give that a bit of nice animation there. You can see we've got that looking pretty nice now.
Nice.
So the final designery thing I want to do is make this pop from the page a little bit. So I'm going to basically blur out the background a little bit. So the
it really
details.
focuses the attention on the actual book description.
Yeah, exactly. So let's come down here. I'm just going to grab a whole bunch of these things, and I'm literally just going to group them together because then I only need to apply the effect once. So we'll just group those together. I'll grab a new effect. We'll add a blur, and I'll hit OK. And then we can play around with the amount of blur. Don't want to go overboard with the blur. Sometimes it takes away if you go too far with these effects. So I'm just going to knock that back to about 10% there. That looks pretty good. Back on the base state, I'm going to get rid of that blur. So we've got all our design pieces now. Everything's in the application, but it doesn't actually do anything.
No.
Can't click on anything.
You haven't wired it up to the top yet.
Yeah, so we need to wire it all up. And the way we're going to do that is we're going to use some more behaviors. In fact, we're just going to use one more behavior, the go to state action, and this is going to control absolutely everything. So I can literally drag and drop this out onto that button. And we can say, hey, when somebody checks the UK button there, we want to show the UK information. We can drag it out again onto the USA and say, hey, when somebody clicks when somebody selects that, we want to show the USA information.
So that behavior really goes hand in hand with the visual state manager, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. It's just and it's a really easy metaphor to understand because it's the same every time you do it. I'm also going to drag it down to the list box. And down here, we're going to say, hey, when the book gets selected, we want you to show the details view.
Slow down.
And then the final thing we want to do here is say, hey, when this is in view, we actually want to have the ability to close it. So I'm going to drag another go to state action over here.
Got it.
Yeah, and I'm literally just going to say hide this. So let's see how we've done.
Going to build it.
let's build it, let's run it, let's have a look. So we're launching it into the browser now. I'll say allow to that, and here it comes. So here's the application. We've just got these two hooked up. We'll just animate that out there like that. We'll go to the USA. That's looking pretty good. We can click through the data. You see how it just automatically animates along the path there. Let's click on a book. There's the information. It all blurs out nicely. Notice the information within that details pane there. If we go and look on at a different book, like so, you can see that the information has actually changed.
Wow.
So we've created a data-bound, animated, gorgeous-looking application in about sort of 12 minutes.
I think you did.
So one of the things that Bill was talking about at the start was this idea of then being able to move this through onto different devices. So these sort of Windows Phone 7 devices that we have a bunch of here at the show, you can have a look at them on the pavilion and get rid of waste. No, you can't hold it. Put that back in my pocket. It's fine. So we thought we'd have a look and see what this might look like on the phone.
Okay.
So I'm going to go back to that original sort of SketchFlow prototype we looked at earlier. And we actually built out a version for the phone. So reusing the same assets, but reformatting it for the new screen and the new control metaphor. So we've got the globe there, it'll rotate, we've got the same navigation at the top. And now we've actually, again, just showing the client how this might work on the phone. So we bring in the book covers. And because it's a touch screen, I could then sort of navigate through the book covers, just sliding up and down really nicely. And then to get that detailed information, I would click on the book, and then that would bring up the information. So reusing all of those assets, but delivering that content to a different form factor.
Brilliant.
So that brings us to the end of the blend piece.
Amazing, absolutely. All that stuff, and not a single line of code typed in the entire demo, all done with drag and drop stuff. Thanks
Brilliant.
very much,
Thanks,
John.
Ray.
Absolutely fantastic. So just to echo that final point that John made there, sort of what we got under development alongside the Windows Phone 7 team is a version of Blend that's specifically going to target that application platform, because Silverlight is the development platform for Windows Phone 7. So it's going to be a great way to repurpose all of your skills. You know, you learn how to use these applications, you learn how to do this kind of stuff in Blend, and you can really use your skills across all these different platforms. And in doing so, really, it's kind of bringing to life the kind of stuff that Bill was talking about earlier on, between all these different sort of experiences, the different tablets, different sizes. It's one set of generic skills that you can use to, you know, to really combine all these different things into all the different form factors we're going to be seeing in the years ahead. Okay. So moving on to the third part of our presentation today, what we wanted to do is we wanted to bring some of our partners and friends up on stage. Not just really to sort of say the Expression Studio is great, because you kind of expect them to say that. What we really wanted them to do was to come up and talk a little bit about how they're using Expression, and indeed Visual Studio in many cases, to transform their businesses and do things. So the first customer I'd like to bring up, it really continues that theme we just finished on there about multiple devices. And they've really used Expression to build a really interesting sort of social media and content delivery platform. Check this out. To tell us a bit more about Copia, please welcome Tony Antolino. Hi, Tony.
How you doing?
How are you?
Right.
So Copia, it's a word I've come to know a little bit about, having researched you, but tell us a bit more about the company.
So actually, Copia is actually born from a much bigger company called DMC Worldwide, and we've been, one of the things that's been very successful for the company is being able to identify and commercialize emerging technologies that are going to have a long-term sustainable impact on the consumer marketplace. And you may not have heard of DMC Worldwide by name, but you definitely know some of the things that we've done. We've consumerized and commercialized LED technology by making the first electronic wristwatch back in the 70s. Wow. We were pioneers in the calculator business, which is, of course, comes out of semiconductors. We were the company behind the Bell South brand of telephones. And then more recently, we have a GSM and GPS technology company called Exact Technology. And then, of course, what we're really here to talk about today is Copia, which is, as you said, a social media and content delivery platform.
Okay, so a lot of people in the office where I work have got things like, you know, Kindles and Nooks and a whole range of these devices. So where is this different from those devices?
And it's a really good question. If you think about what those companies are doing today, they're really focused on getting content into the consumer's hands so they can go and read them or consume them. And what Copia did was we really stepped back from just the delivery or the push of the content for a second, and we said, we really want to focus on the experience that can be had around that content once the consumer owns that content. So yes, we are an enterprise-level e-commerce platform, but more importantly, we are focusing on three really important components. We have content, great library across all different digital touch points. So you have movies and music and books, newspapers, and magazines. And then you have community, because community is inherently important to all of us. It's what we do in our physical lives. And now, of course, in the past couple of years, it's become enormously popular and important in social networks, right?
Yeah.
So we bring together community and collaboration features to the site, and then, of course, and the platform, and then, of course, e-commerce. But what's more is, as everyone's been talking about today, it's about bringing that experience and putting it across all different digital devices. So I may love to use a mobile phone. You may love an e-reader, if we're in the e-reading space for a second. Or someone else may love a computer, right? A PC, tablet, notebook, whatever the case may be. So it was really about creating that same exciting experience and making sure that we were able to carry it forward and maximize it across all different devices. Different form factors require different experiences.
Of course.
So we want to make sure that we're bringing that holistic experience together.
Okay, and how did Expression and Visual Studio sort of help you do this?
First, it came along for us because we're launching this month. You know,
timely.
encourage everybody to see us out at the pavilion after. But a couple of ways. On the development side, it was about being able to give our team, which is designers, developers, information architects, user interface guys, the ability to work independently and then quickly and seamlessly be able to bring that all together. ES4 really enabled us to do that. Then the second thing is at the device level, since we are accessible and creating a great experience across all devices, it gave us the ability to do rapid development across different hardware platforms. So It's been fantastic.
Great. Glad we're able to help. Thanks a lot, Sonny.
Thank you.
Okay. And our second partner, this one actually started back in Redmond, where the team is based. We did some briefings on campus at Redmond earlier on in the year about the products you're seeing here, the version 4 products. And one of the guys who came onto campus, a great friend of ours, was really enthusiastic about SketchFlow. And I mean, really enthusiastic, you know, too enthusiastic. And so, you know, we really sort of wanted to bring him up here to tell you how he's using SketchFlow really to transform the way that they're winning business. From Anvil Digital, please welcome Miguel Carrasco. Hello, my enthusiastic friend, how are you? So, I remember this day very clearly because you were leaping about the room telling us about, what was it you were telling us?
We were talking mainly about SketchFlow at the time and how beneficial it was to our business to grow and things like that.
And what was that statistic you threw at me that I loved?
So it was so basically Anvil Digital is a marketing and technology company that kind of tries to blend marketing and technology together to solve real-world problems. You know, we grew out of a $60 million, kind of a division of a $60 million manufacturing company that actually sells grills and diffusers, not a sexy company. And how would they differentiate themselves? You know, so we started using technology and marketing about 6 years ago, and we grew that company from about 60 million to about $300 million. So that was kind of the first step. So out of that, we started, you know, creating ourselves as an identity. So we do things like bidding on RFPs and things like that. Our biggest challenge was with the RFP process. You know, it's basically broken right now. It's very hard. You have the CEOs and directors of companies that are so excited about new ideas, new concepts to create that basically we have to fill out a piece of paper and kind of say, hey, we have a great idea. We can solve your problem. So
believe us.
Yeah, believe us kind of a thing. So when Sketchflow came out, we thought, well, how can we take our win rate from 1 to 9 to maybe a 9 out of 10 kind of a thing. So try and win more business. And by using Sketchflow and getting people to think about things, because a lot of times they haven't thought everything through, and try and get them to think about things. Well, what happens if you do this? Kind of present them examples. It was a very, very powerful thing for us.
So you've gone from winning 1 in 10 beds to 9 out of 10 beds just simply by using. And what is it about Sketchflow that you think customers are liking then? What is it about the way you're presenting the stuff?
Well, there's different things that we do. I'm not going to tell you everything because
of course
kind of give away the secret. But,
tell me later.
But a lot of it is basically being able to show people ideas and concepts, show them that here's one solution, but start to get them thinking about, what could happen if we did this a different way. And I think that's why they come back to us and say, you know what, all these other companies had the great ideas and great solutions, but this one company actually made us think about things and kind of see how things work all the way from the concept all the way to the end, which is the completion of the project.
Kind of thing with John was showing on screen a little while ago, yeah.
Exactly, and things that Bill Buxton talks about all the time. It's just such a great tool.
Fantastic. Okay, thanks very much.
Thanks very much.
Thank you very much indeed. And our final partner is a little bit more of an established Microsoft partner. Synergy is a name that many of you will know, and you've probably seen them at many events around the world already. From Synergy, please welcome Dave Wolf. Hi, Dave.
Hey,
how are you? Good. So, Synergy, pretty well-known name. People tend to think of you more of an Adobe house, I guess, really.
Yeah, so Synergy, we help people, imagine new software products. We help them design a people experience and interact with them, and then develop them as these really rich and immersive, just really consuming products. And for a long time, we did that as an Adobe shop. So we were working with things like Flash, Flex, Flash, Flex, and Air.
Uh-huh. And when did you sort of start doing stuff in Silverlight and working on the Microsoft platforms?
Yeah, so 2007, Scott Guthrie, Las Vegas. We were in the audience when they announced Silverlight 1.0. And I remember because literally at the end of it, our president and I looked at each other, dropped ourselves, ran back to the hotel room, and cut a press release announcing we were going to create a Microsoft practice.
In a hotel room.
Yeah. So we launched it that day. So that was April 2007.
And how's it going now? So is it sort of 20% of your business, 15%? Where is it now?
Yeah. So 2007, it was a press release.
0%. Yeah.
0%. Right. Boomed into that. At the beginning of 2009, it accounted for about 15% of our revenues. And at the close of 2009, in December, it closed at over half of our revenues.
So 50-50 split between the two?
50-50 kind of bounces around a little bit for us. And the most important part is that's all additive. So our Adobe practice grew as well. That was all new business for us.
Interesting. So one of the more high-profile things you did recently was the eBay project you worked on, which I thought was brilliant. A lot of people did. What was it like to build using the tools?
Yeah, so eBay came to us with a heck of a challenge, right? They said, hey, we're clearly one of the biggest e-tailers in the world, an established brand. Help us reimagine, though, what it would be like for people, not the power source, but people like all of us, to come in and list a product in eBay. And that's going to go from strategy, help us imagine it and design it and develop the whole thing. So we started in January of this year. And we started, at the beginning, our designers there during strategy sessions literally sketching on Wacom digitizers into Sketchflow. So sketching right in front of them, throwing it up on Sketchflows, bouncing that back and forth inside of Expression Suite. Going from there to doing the design and the transitions and animations and all the flows and stuff you see in there inside of Blend inside of Expression Suite, and then shipping the product. We were able to do that from those, those first sketches in San Jose in January to a shipping product in about 8 weeks.
Wow, and it's and really involving the customer along the way, obviously.
Yeah, exactly. Tons of back and forth, getting that, both from eBay as well as out in the hands of sellers, and then launching it as a beta, and now it's actually out in the Seller Hub, which anyone can see. And we'll be showing it out in the pavilion today.
Great, fantastic. Thanks a lot, Dave. Thank you.
Thanks, mate.
So all of the three partners you just seen on stage there are all going to be outside in the pavilion. And really, as we close here, what I wanted to try and sort of leave you as a thought was, Expression Studio, hopefully you've got an idea, has a ton of capabilities, really helping you take static design to full interactive design across multiple platforms, desktop, the web, and soon mobile. Remember, as we said, it's available now. This isn't a launch event for 2 months' time. Expression 4 is available now. It's a free upgrade for any version 3 customers. We'd love you to come and visit our website, microsoft.com/expression. A brand new version has been going live while you've been sitting here in the seats today. Please go and visit us in the pavilion next door. We're here all week, team of all the engineers. The customers are going to be here as well. The last thing I want to leave you with is we would like to give you some copies of these books. Mr. Buxton has very kindly agreed to personalize them in any way you like. So if you fancy happy anniversary, dear, or something, he'll do anything you want to do. And the way you're going to win one of these is... Did anybody feel your seat move? No? Some of you have got taped under your seats a thing saying you're a winner. If you're one of those people, go and see Bill in the pavilion next door and he'll sign one of these books for you. Thank you ever so much for joining us here today. We hope you had a good, interesting show. Enjoy the rest of your week at Internet Week New York. Thank you.